Hey guys, thank you for joining us. We have a very special guest tonight, Thomas Dawkins, who performs as Cara Noir. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure, man. Thank you for coming. Like Callum said, this was a bucket list for us. So you've made our dreams come true tonight.
Well, that, as I said before, that's very kind, and to be considered on your bucket list, yeah, that means a lot.
Well, I mean, I'm going to start off straight away before we get into everything. We mentioned one of the guys because we've spoken to him, and he's mentioned he wants to work with you. I mean, let's start off there. Is Danhausen someone you'd be interested in working with?
Well, yeah, of course. Like any opportunity that you get to uh, uh, play with such an interesting kind of character as Danhausen, I think it kind of writes itself. Don't get me wrong; it is always sometimes difficult to kind of perform with other characters because,
Mm.
especially from the world of comedy, it's good to kind of have a straight man to work with.
Yeah.
So sometimes two characters together don't always make magic, but with him, I kind of feel that it would be so off the wall that yeah, like where like the possibilities could be endless, right?
Yeah, we were kind of fantasy booking this before when we tweeted it out. We put a picture of yourself and Danhausen and came up with the ad lib name Carahausen. And I was just thinking, imagine the entrance you could both do together. I think it would be absolute magic.
Yeah, I think it would. I think it wow, yeah. No, just if as a duo entrance alone, that would be quite a spectacle.
Right.
It definitely would be some of the entrances I've done. The only partner that I've ever tagged with as Cara and done an entrance with was Kip Saban, and he was openly and was vaping at the time. I don't know whether he still does, but as I went down into the little ball on the floor to come up for the big reveal, he blew smoke as I come up, and it was such a funny
that
great
sounds
moment.
Amazing.
So yeah, so yeah, that's so imagine what I could do with Danhausen is like another level, but yeah, that would be so much fun to do.
While we're on the subject of your entrance, I think we'd be remiss to not mention how cool your entrance is as Cara Noir. And the reason I bring that up is my mum is a big wrestling fan, but she'd never seen your work before. So when I said we've got Cara Noir coming on the show, she said, okay, show me something of his. So I showed her your entrance at Riptide versus PAC. And just in the first few minutes of your entrance, my mum had goosebumps. And she said, this is incredible. She was hooked before there'd even been a move. She was invested. And I feel like your entrance has that effect on a lot of people. And that can't be the first time you've heard that your entrance is, it gives people goosebumps.
Yeah, it's not the first time I've heard it. And it's a real privilege when people come up to me after a show and have a chat with me. And they and if it touches them, that's really important. And I feel that wrestling should be and is for everyone. And I think that the more when I first was devising Cara as a character and as a concept, I wanted it to bridge so many artistic styles and gaps and performance styles that anyone that kind of has an appreciation for something else could watch the performance and kind of go, oh, okay, I can see why people enjoy wrestling, because the more people we can open up to it, the bigger and more diverse the audiences will be. And the thing with the entrance particularly is I've had a lot of people say that they get really emotionally invested with it and they feel something, and it kind of it does something really emotional to them. But on the entrance, it does something really emotional to me as well. Like before I even walk out, I get into a particular state where it's not always the nicest place that I access, but when I walk out, I've kind of it's overwhelming. I kind of, you may have seen it on different shows where I've come out and the reception has been so overwhelming that it's kind of like brought me to tears on the entrance, because I'm feeling every step and I'm feeling every movement, and to be, for me, the ending is the big victory pose, as I'd like to coin it as that, because it feels like I've already won before the match has started. And to have that feeling as a performer who's very quiet, I'm quite quiet, I'm very introverted in real life, and to kind of feel like you've won before you even started the match, it doesn't then matter whether I've kind of anything goes wrong. I feel like I've kind of already had a successful performance, so it kind of puts me in this kind of like hyped state.
You can tell with your performances, you can tell when you're coming out that you are invested in the entrance. It's not just an entrance, you're actually feeling it too, along with the fans. And I think that's what makes it so special, is it's more of an experience, your entrance. Like, it's not just you does some music playing, you come out. There's a whole thing to it. And we've seen it live twice, I believe. And in person, when we first saw it, we got goosebumps too. And I think it was you versus John Klinger at WrestleGate Pro. That was the first match we saw, and that was a hell of a match. But even still afterwards, like, that match specifically, great entrance, amazing match, and you earned his respect at the end, and the whole thing was just brilliant. So we had goosebumps the whole way through, but I'd never seen anything like that before. Even on a smaller stage, that entrance still seemed larger than life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and like and yeah, it was the I always was told when you went to, like, acting school or drama school and stuff like that, to take an idea and think of the biggest concept you could, right? And then you have to then kind of, and then to make it realistic, then you'll have to kind of dial it back. And it was started at Lucha Britannia in the small archway, and went from that to Working's men's clubs. I did a lot with Hope, and for a long period of time, and even in those environments, as simple as just turning the lights off really kind of builds that atmosphere. But the real kind of thing that got me the most was Ali Pali, when I come out against Pete, and I watched that back and offered just some fan footage that someone shot from the back of the room, and it kind of like, I just cried every time I watched it for like a week. I just cried because I was like, this is what it was designed for originally. And to actually kind of see people appreciating it, because it wasn't actually, I didn't come up with the concept originally to actually be liked. I wanted to steal everyone's time.
Yeah.
That was the original concept. The entrance was purposefully long to aggravate wrestling fans, and clearly that didn't work.
No, it didn't.
And the more I got into it, the more everyone else got into it. And but yeah, I love doing it. It's the best kind of for me. It kind of fills me with such good energy that I can kind of take on the world after that.
Yeah, because you do have a background as well, don't you, in ballet and dance and mixed martial arts. I mean, how cool has that been for you to be able to incorporate all that into the character?
Yeah, so it's such a varied background. Like, you don't know until kind of, you don't know all of these different things that you're going to pick up on the way that will culminate to a particular point. And yeah, so like I have a dance background. I did a bit of ballet. I didn't like ballet too much because I used to get beaten with a ruler. So I eventually stopped that because ballet practices at the time weren't the best. But yeah, I kind of went into, like, it was the 90s, so a lot of street dance, kind of like modern. I did a lot of like partner dancing. At the same time, I did martial arts, and then got into MMA eventually. Went through the route of Muay Thai to get to MMA, and it's interesting. It makes perfect sense of how they've kind of Of course I went into wrestling, of course, because you're a performer and a martial artist, and I liked MMA, but when I did MMA wasn't really a thing. It was, UFC only just started, and it was kind of karate versus jiu-jitsu, for example,
Yeah.
or a boxer versus, so yeah, it was a little bit more varied. And but now it's kind of it's its own discipline in itself, so it's not the same sort of MMA that I did back in the day, but but yeah, I think you can kind of see that when I originally came up with developed Cara, you can I kind of stripped a lot of things away and gave it very bare basics, because before I was kind of trying to do everything I could, and none of it made sense. But if I stripped it down, then I could kind of start from fresh, and then I've started to add more and more kind of my martial arts influence in, and occasionally I might pull out some flippy stuff because I can still do it when it's needed, of course.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I love it as well, though. I mean, obviously you come out that mesmerising entrance, but when that bell rings, man, I mean, you're a badass.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no holding back. I mean, for example, Progress, the match with Dan Maloney. I mean, that was one of the best matches I've seen in a very, very long time.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, for a first one back, that was pretty heavy.
Yeah, to say the least. Yeah.
How good's it been back? I mean, how has it felt being back, obviously, with Progress and things like that?
It's like to have something taken away in a way. Obviously, we've all had this experience during the last year of things that we enjoy doing getting taken away, and to work for 10 years to a point where you're kind of really starting to feel some success from it, and then have that ripped away from you, it was really, really hard for us. So yeah, coming back was a massive shock to the system. Like physically, I kind of it's taken me a couple of sets of tape-ins to kind of get back into the rhythm and kind of feel kind of comfortable in the ring. But as soon as I was standing opposite from Dan, it was like, yeah, I'm home. I'm kind of here. It's the thing that lights me up, the thing that fires me up, and I can kind of explore all of that emotional trauma that I've had for the last year of being denied to wrestle in this match, and I think Dan wasn't a perfect opponent for me to come back to, definitely.
Yeah, because obviously you're the Progress World Champion, and that's a great title to have, and you'd only really just started to pick up pace pre-pandemic, and then to have that year gap in between, I only really feel like your title reign is only just starting now. Like, I feel like we're going to see you start to prove to everybody you're the best in Progress, because you haven't had chance that last year. Do you feel like there's any kind of burden on your shoulders right now with the Progress World Championship and not competing for the last year?
I was more worried before I wrestled that, I'm older than people think I am. And I was worried that in this year that I would just kind of like fall apart because I'd lose the callus of wrestling. But as a burden, no, not really. I kind of, how I see it is, Progress is now, because of the situation of COVID and how everything is, it's a very young roster.
Yeah.
And for me, it just feels like I just want to be backstage, and I have been backstage trying to elevate, help. I sit backstage with the clipboard and kind of try to give as much feedback as I can. So the burden's not really, it's not a burden. It's just like, come with me, and that's kind of create something new and something a little bit different, because there's so much opportunity, and that's the reason why I am in the position today, because of being in the right place at the right time. And I understand that. It's as people get signed and move on, a new influx come in, and you always hear the wrestling is Brit Rest is dead every single time, and but actually no, it's the new generation, and they have been taught by the previous generation, so then it's always left in good hands. I do agree. I do feel like it's kind of I've only really just started kind of getting my teeth into the title picture, of course, because you know there was such that break, and yeah, I think the last match I had of progress was with Chris Brooks, which is I think it was January. So yeah, that's you know, so that was such a long gap. So there was a little bit of self-doubt there, of course, but I feel that after a handful of tapings, I've set my stride.
That's good.
Yeah.
We kind of.
I've got to ask. There is a question I promised I would ask one of my friends. Is someone you might be familiar with? Simon Herring. He's a photographer. He took some incredible pictures of yourself, which he said I can put into this interview, so I'll put them on the screen. He said, "Can you please ask Cara, because you are his favorite wrestler. Your match with PAC at Riptide was an absolute highlight. Did you know in the moment you were creating something special? From the camera work to the match and the crowd and the lack of handshakes, did it feel different?"
Of course, yeah. It was. I did my entrance knowing that there was something special about to happen,
right?
And knowing that I told you there'd be a cameo of my daughter at some point. No. Yeah, I could just hear her kind of pulling at the door. She's just been grabbed by my partner. Yeah, sorry. Where was I? What was the question? Oh yes. So yeah, I knew something was special then in that moment, and I got a chance to come out first and then see PAC's entrance. And if you look at that footage, you see me smile because it was such an overwhelming reaction, and it was such a surprise that, as I was saying earlier, from that point on, like, not that we could have just done nothing, but it was such an important moment and such a big reaction that yeah, I just meeting PAC and working with him and realizing how humble he is, and he reminds me of so many other people that I've worked with in the past and come up with, and we kind of even just had a conversation, and it just flowed, and everything flowed, and there's you know, not to you know break the fourth wall, but there's a moment in the middle of the match where PAC was like, "This is pretty fucking awesome, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is."
Was that the best time you've worked with him?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it's the first time I've worked with him. It's the first time I've ever met him. I didn't even like when it was originally pitched to me, the idea, what was going to happen. I've had people put me against kind of like big stars or imports, and it doesn't always happen because you know things change, right? So even on the day, I was like, well, we'll see if he's there, and then I was like, oh, he's here. It's going to happen. Oh wow. But yeah, no, like for we could just feel it, like everything, from every bump and every moment, the crowd were with us the whole way through. And that match, I'm so thankful for PAC because that match started the journey. You know, I can timeline the matches that really made an impact with the audience and got me onto bigger platforms. And it all starts with Mike Bailey at Riptide, and then PAC, and then Pete Dunne, Ilya, and then Mike Bailey again at Carrot. So it's kind of like bookended at both ends with Bailey.
Yeah, and there's another guy, I mean, Mike Bailey. I mean, what was it like working with Mike? Because a lot of people don't realize just how good he is.
Yeah, I think he's a genius. Like, I think he's a genius. Like, me and Bailey don't always agree on certain things when we're kind of putting structures together, but you can see the creativity and how we kind of, and it's built from a mutual respect. His interests were to work with me originally is because he twigged that I had a martial arts background, and from one martial artist to another, they're like, oh, I do it all the time. If I know someone's got a martial arts background, I'm like, oh, I want to work with you. And it just kind of stemmed from that, and for such a long period of time, and even now he still is, he's such a mentor. So every time I wrestle him, it's such a learning experience, and he's so creative, and we pull things out of each other that we don't get the opportunity to do with other people.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it's kind of this idea of this bookend kind of journey with Bailey, is because he started something off, and then at Cara, it kind of, I finally got a win over him at WXW, and it's for the biggest tournament in Europe. So it kind of meant so much to have that moment with him in the ring. And and he's so, he just loves being creative. I like the fact that we even started that match with me being like, Cara feeling so emotionally overwhelmed, beaten up, and just being like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm so beaten up. I can't wrestle you. And that's how the match kind of built from that point on. And kind of, he's a very special person. I think, he's someone that hopefully I get to work more in the future.
Is there anyone in Progress at the moment? Like you said, there's a lot of new talent that's been injected into Progress right now. Is there anybody on that roster who you haven't had the chance to wrestle yet that you're really looking forward to getting in there with?
There's so many people. That because there's a lot of people that I myself wasn't even aware of. You know, you have like young people like Danny Black. You have you have like Gene Money, who I've known for years, and we've had multiple different styles of matches. Lycos, I've never wrestled Lycos, and that's something that's kind of on my list of to dos. There's I'm trying to think through the entire roster. I know you could stick me with anyone like this. And I believe that everyone is there and has a caliber to stick me with Big Guns Joe. I think we'd have a banger.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Big Guns Joe.
Like there's I feel like there's anyone on that roster that I could kind of pull something different out of, and that would be really exciting to kind of do. Who else? Jordan Briggs is another one that I've never had the opportunity to wrestle, and I'm surprised no one's ever booked it. Because I have such a. Well, I was originally trained in only a World of Sport style. I wasn't even allowed to climb the top rope when I first started. So really? I do have that in me. I just don't do it, very often because it's not necessary for the character that I'm portraying.
Yeah,
so I don't have all of that yet.
It is a very unique style, isn't it? That World of Sport style. It's not something you see too often nowadays, but when it's done right, it's absolutely fascinating to watch as a fan, because it's like a throwback to a time gone by. So when you find a wrestler who can do it really well, like Jordan Briggs, it's absolutely brilliant to watch.
Definitely, yeah. And I think it can be also done in the contemporary style. One of my favorite matches was probably way back in 2019 with Daniel Mills, and that was rounds,
right?
But we did it in a very in a very contemporary way. So I would recommend going and check that one out, because I think it's free on YouTube. It's up there somewhere, and that was with Head Drop. And I think you can take rounds and blend an old school flavor with a modern style. It'd be fun to wrestle Jordan Briggs, because like, why would Cara wrestle with him? That would be the question I'd go into the match with. I'm just not going to wrestle you. I'll do everything else but wrestle you.
I did. I spoke to Roy Johnson a couple of weeks ago, and he spoke very highly of you. He also told me about 18 times to make sure we all know he isn't retired just because he's the host of Progress. He did make sure, he repeated that several times. But he also mentioned as well that you're very, you're hands-on. You like to mentor the kids backstage and stuff. Is that something you take a lot of importance and pride in?
Well, yeah, it's not necessarily pride. I just kind of want everyone to get better. I think the more I can kind of help, the kind of, I feel that the better everyone around me will be.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of instinctual, you know. I come from great like martial arts mentors, and then from that, they've kind of instilled with me that kind of mentorship, and it's just want to pass on as much knowledge. I'm not always right, and I'll try to give as much feedback as I can. But maybe there's something in what I'm saying that maybe might help someone to get to that next level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've really been trying to help as much as I can. There've been a few shows where I've not been actually on at all, and I've just sat backstage with a clipboard, as I said at the beginning, just saying, I'm here if you want to ask me my opinion, you know, because like there's been more senior wrestlers than I am that come up to me and ask me, oh, have you got any feedback? And that's always blown me away, the fact that, you know, they are up here and they still ask.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way you can get better, is by perpetually learning.
Well, another wrestler that we spoke to recently who spoke very highly of you is Doug Williams. And Doug has just come out of retirement, as I'm sure you know. I asked him, who are you looking forward to getting in the ring with again, whether you've been in the ring before with them or haven't? And he said, the first name he said was Cara Noir. And I mean, he said he's wrestled you before, pre-Cara, but he wants to get in the ring with Cara Noir. Is that a match you'd be willing to do? I'm sure it is.
100%, right? Like, I remember I wrestled him, pre-Cara, and I remember being so out of my depth at that point, but having such a fun time. And to be able to do that with Cara, I think it speaks for itself. It'd be a pleasure. It would 100% be a pleasure. And as soon as I got so many, I don't read Twitter. I'm going to be honest. I just put things out and leave them in the ether, and Instagram, because I don't have time. I'm always doing other things. But like, I got loads of phone calls and messages saying Doug's come out of retirement. I was like,
Well, there is another little bit to that. He did say, I've never won a world championship before, and Cara has the Progress World Championship. It made it seem like he was coming after that at some point. So,
there we go.
Not to stare or anything, but
well, I'm not to speak for Cara, of course, but like, just the, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes, right? If that's what it takes to have that match happen, that's what it would take, right? And I think I would like to be a part of it, and I hope people would like to see it.
I'm sure they would.
We certainly would. One last thing, I know you obviously you've got things to do. I'll end it on this. You are cordially invited. What was it like being a part of that? We spoke to Charles a few weeks ago, and we know you was a part of it. What was that like?
Well, it was. I've done film work before, so it was really really fun to be a part of. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to see most of the filming process because of COVID. I only come in at the end, and that was at the end of the day. But just to kind of be there and see what he was putting together, and the original pitch, I thought was like, it was so crazy but so different, and I like different. I like to take wrestling out of different concepts. I like to put it into cabarets and dance pieces and all sorts of different variations outside of wrestling. So as soon as he said this, I was like, well, yeah, it could go one of two ways. But just to see the production that he had and the amount of time and effort that he'd put into developing the script and the amount of work wrestlers that he had there, it was so much fun just to kind of be backstage with friends that you haven't seen for over a year. When we started getting splattered with blood, It was it was a bit cold, but very very quite fun. I think I've always thought that the white makeup, sorry, with blood on it, it looks very striking. So
Yeah.
The old crimson mask, absolutely, yeah. Well, I don't. We don't want to keep you much longer. I know, you know, your family at home, so we don't want to keep you much longer. But is there anything you want to promote? Any? I know you're not a big social media guy, but any merchandise or any upcoming shows?
Well, like if you want to like connect with me or anything like that, it's on Twitter. I you know, I do get back to people eventually. But yeah, like I have my website, you know, caranoir.com, and it's got all my merch and anything that any extra things I'm running. I'm about to run a character development course, which closes on the 1st, so that would be tomorrow. And to go to work with that. Only a handful of wrestlers, and already I've got too many applications to sift through, which is great. And yeah, that's it for the moment. You know, if you want to watch me currently, its progress is where I'm currently at until things start to open up, and who knows where we'll be from that point on.
Well, I know I speak for Callum as well. We can't wait to see you live again. It's always a thrill, man. But for now, it's been an absolute pleasure. We can't thank you enough. Thomas Dawkins performs as Cara Noir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.